The circular chamber held 372 species, each represented by ambassadors who had seen civilizations rise and fall. Counselor Vale of the Thine Dominion had witnessed 17 extinction events across 8 sectors, nothing prepared him for the data streaming across his display. The Vorak incursion occurred 3 cycles ago, he said, his mandibles clicking in measured rhythm. Standard punitive expedition, 12 raiding vessels. Intelligence suggested a primitive species with barely functional orbital infrastructure. The holographic map flickered, showing a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. What we failed to understand, Vale continued, was that the Vorak didn't attack a primitive world, they poked a nest of something far worse. Across the chamber, Ambassador Thne of the Eldari Confederacy shifted in her fluid-filled tank. Her species had mastered interstellar travel when humanity's ancestors still carved stone tools. Now, her chromatophores flashed warning patterns she hadn't displayed in 1,000 years. The Vorak lost 47 ships, Thren said, her voice translated through mechanical relays. Their entire battle group, not one vessel, returned to their home world. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Vorak weren't respected. They were feared. Their military had crushed the Cathar rebellion, pacified the Zorn marches, and once burned an entire sector to deny resources to their enemies. They didn't lose. They certainly didn't lose to newly contacted species. Hell, Ambassador Krell of the Hierarchs Combine demanded his species valued efficiency above all else. Intelligence files showed projectile weapons, fusion drives barely capable of interplanetary transit, no shielding technology, no energy weapons. How do such creatures destroy a battle group? Vale pulled up the combat logs. The chamber fell silent as footage began playing. Human ships moved wrong. They didn't form proper battle lines. They didn't follow engagement protocols. They swarmed like insects, firing from impossible angles, using their own damaged vessels as projectiles, ramming when their weapons failed. One human ship, a rust-cold construction barely worthy of being called a warship, had accelerated directly toward the Vorak flagship. It absorbed 12 direct hits before detonating its drive core 200 m from the enemy bridge. The explosion disabled the flagship's command functions. Another human vessel immediately boarded through the breach. Impossible. Ambassador Krell whispered, the radiation levels alone would the boarding party survived. Vale interrupted, we have medical scans. Their cellular repair mechanisms accelerated beyond any known species. They walked through radiation that would dissolve a Threne battle form. They fought hand-to-hand against Vorak soldiers, and they won. The chamber erupted. Multiple ambassadors spoke at once, their translators struggling to keep pace with overlapping demands for clarification. Vale raised an upper appendage for silence. That is not why I convened this session. He advanced the footage. The humans had accessed the Vorak ship's navigation database, then they'd accessed its communication array. Then this was the part that made Vale's internal fluids run cold. They'd broadcast something. Not a demand for surrender, not a plea for mercy. We know where your home world is. The message repeated on every frequency in every language. The Vorak ship contained 3 words, then silence. Ambassador Thin's chromatophores flashed pure white. the Ilari sign for absolute terror. The Vorak home world is a military secret, she said there. Navigation data is encrypted with quantum state encoding. Not even our best decryption engines could crack it. In less than a decade. Then perhaps, Vale replied, you should hire humans. A new hologram materialized above the central podium. It showed a Vorak colony. World-neutral territory used for resource extraction. The image shifted to show the same world 3 days later. The orbital infrastructure was gone. The mining platforms, the defense satellites, the supply depots. Everything. The humans didn't attack. Vale said they simply removed everything that wasn't the planet itself. Then they broadcast the coordinates of every Vorak military installation in 3 sectors. Ambassador Krell's feeding tentacles withdrew into his torso. That's impossible. They don't have faster than light travel. They couldn't reach those systems. They didn't need to reach them. Vale's mandibles clicked faster now. They just needed to prove they knew where they were, and then they asked the Vorak a question. The chamber waited. Do you feel safe? No one spoke. Across 372 species, across every form of respiration and consciousness and biological imperative, every ambassador understood the same terrible truth. Humans hadn't defended their world. They'd issued a threat, and the Vorak, the feared, the unstoppable, the conquerors of 100 worlds had gone silent. Emergency session is now in effect, Vale announced. We must decide what to do about humanity before they decide what to do about us. The doors at the far end of the chamber opened. A Vorak ambassador stood there trembling. We need to talk, it said. The Vorak ambassador wore ceremonial armor scarred by weapons fire, human weapons based on the thermal signatures. It walked with a limp, one of its 4 upper appendages hanging uselessly. The chamber's environmental systems automatically adjusted for its methane-based biology. A courtesy no one had extended to Vorak representatives in cycles. What is the meaning of this, Counselor? Vale demanded. Your species forfeited diplomatic privileges when you launched an unprovoked attack. The Vorak raised its functional appendages in submission, a gesture no Vorak had ever made in recorded history. They didn't attack us because we attacked Earth, it said. Translator struggled with the creature's damaged vocal organs. They attacked us because we attacked one of their colony ships 300 years ago. Ambassador Threen's tank bubble stopped. 300 years, humanity didn't have interstellar flight 300 years ago. Exactly, the Vorak's mandibles quivered. We encountered a generation vessel, slow-moving, thousands of humans in suspended animation. We destroyed it. Standard procedure, eliminate potential future competitors before they become threats. The chamber's temperature dropped as multiple species activated defensive cooling systems. This wasn't an attack. This was a massacre of the defenseless. You committed genocide, Ambassador Krell said flatly. We eliminated a threat, or so we believed. The Vorak's trembling intensified. One escape pod survived. We tracked it back to Earth. But by then the humans had already received the pod's distress signal. They knew someone had destroyed their ship. They just didn't know who. Vale's mind raced. The attack 3 cycles ago. Raiding fleet wasn't a punitive expedition. You were trying to destroy the evidence. The humans had spent 3 Centuries preparing, building, watching, waiting for us to reveal ourselves. Vorak lowered its head when our fleet arrived at Earth. They were ready, not just ready, eager. They wanted us to come. Ambassador Thrin's chromatophores cycled through colors so rapidly they appeared to strobe. You're saying they baited you? We're saying the humans have been baiting every species that approaches their system for 500 years. The Vorak's voice cracked. They have listening posts throughout the outer reaches of their solar system. They've intercepted diplomatic transmissions, trade negotiations, military communications. They know everything about the galactic community. Everything. Vale stood frozen. If true, this changed everything. Newly contacted species weren't supposed to have centuries of espionage data. They weren't supposed to understand galactic politics before their first official meeting. How much do they know? He asked. The Vorak raised its head. In its 4 eyes, Vale saw something he'd never witnessed in a Vorak before. Fear. They know about the Threen civil war. They know about the Ulari genetic collapse. They know about the Hyrix resource shortages. They know every weakness, every secret, every lie every species in this chamber has told to maintain power. The Vorak's mandibles opened wide, their species equivalent of weeping, and they know that the Council voted to quarantine Earth 200 years ago because your scans detected weapons development you found concerning the chamber exploded. Accusations flew. Denials, threats. Ambassador Krell actually lunged at the Vorak before security restraints activated. You're lying, Krell snarled. Check your own archives, the Vorak replied. Check the secret session records from Cycle 80, 743. The Council classified Earth as a Level 3 threat, not because of what humans could do, but because of what they were becoming. You were afraid, all of you. And instead of making contact, you built a cordon and hoped the problem would go away. Vale's display pinged. Someone was transmitting to the chamber without authorization. The humans are hailing us, he said. Every ambassador froze on speakers. Threen whispered, we have to hear them. Vale accepted the transmission. A human face appeared on the central hologram. Male, middle-aged by human standards, with gray stray hair and eyes that seemed to look through the camera directly into each ambassador's soul. Counselor Vale of the Threen Dominion, the human said. Ambassador Thin of the Ilari Confederacy, Ambassador Krell of the Hyrix Combine, thank you for finally having this conversation. The human's voice was calm, reasonable, almost friendly. 3 cycles ago, a Vorak Wharf attacked our home world. We defended ourselves. We also learned the truth about the quarantine, about the generation vessel your ancestors destroyed, about all of it. The human paused. We're not barbarians. We understand why you did it. Species preserve themselves. That's the law of survival. His eyes hardened. But you made one mistake. You assumed we wouldn't find out, and you assumed we wouldn't care. The hologram shifted, showing a map of the galaxy. Markers appeared, hundreds of them scattered across every sector. These are the locations of every warship currently deployed by every species in this chamber. The human continued, we're not threatening you, we're demonstrating capability. You wanted to know what we are. Here's your answer. The map zoomed in on a single system, Threen space, Vale's own home world. We are the Species that found your stealth ships. We are the species that decoded your encrypted communications. We are the species that has been preparing for this moment for 500 years. The human leaned forward. Now shall we discuss terms, or would you prefer to continue pretending we don't exist? Vale looked around the chamber. 372 ambassadors, 372 species, all of them realizing the same terrible truth. The quarantine had never kept humanity out, it had kept the galaxy in. Human delegation arrived unannounced. Commander Ellis Vance and Lieutenant Myra Sulis walked through the council chamber's main entrance without escort, without invitation, without any of the diplomatic protocols every species in the galaxy observed. They wore armor made from Vorak carapace. The ceremonial guards, 3 shock troops genetically engineered for loyalty and lethality, stepped aside. Not because they were ordered, because they recognized the armor, recognized what it meant. These 2 humans had killed Vorak soldiers and stripped the bodies for equipment. Counselor Vale watched them approach. His mandibles remained still, a conscious effort to hide his agitation. The humans were smaller than he expected, shorter than the average Threen, softer looking. Their bodies lacked natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom sacs. By galactic standards, they were prey species. And yet this is a closed session, Vale said. You have no standing here. Commander Vance stopped at the central podium. He didn't ask permission to speak. He simply activated the holographic interface and began pulling up files. You're discussing whether to declare Earth a level 1 threat, Vance said. Whether to authorize a preemptive strike, whether to risk open war with a species you don't understand. Ambassador Krell's feeding tentacles writhed. How did you access those files? You left them on an unsecured relay station orbiting your 7th planet. Vance didn't look up from the hologram. Pro tip: if you're going to have secret conversations, don't route them through civilian infrastructure. Lieutenant Soli stood behind Vance, scanning the chamber with the same expression a predator might use when counting prey. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Her presence said enough. You attacked the Vorak without provocation, Ambassador Thin said from her tank. You destroyed their colony's infrastructure. You threatened their home world. By galactic law, you are the aggressors. Vance finally looked up. The Vorak destroyed a human colony ship 300 years ago, 8,000 colonists dead in the vacuum. We waited 3 centuries to respond. That's not provocation, that's patience. The generation vessel was outside your territory, Krello countered. By law, the Vorak had every right to. The generation vessel contained children. Vance's voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. 800 children, Ambassador in suspended animation, waiting to wake up. In a new world, Krell's tentacles withdrew completely. You destroyed one of ours, Vance continued. We destroyed your military infrastructure. That makes us even. The difference is we could have destroyed your home world. We chose not to. You're bluffing, Vale said. So moved for the first time, she stepped to the podium and entered a command sequence. The holographic map shifted to show an asteroid field standard formation. Nothing remarkable. 3 weeks ago, Soy said, her voice quiet. We calculated the trajectory of every asteroid in this field, cross-referenced with the Vorex supply routes identified, which rocks would intersect with which ships at which times, the map animated. Asteroids moved, ships moved, several intersections occurred, we redirected. One asteroid, small one, maybe 50 meters across, solely zoomed in on a Vorax. Supply vessel impacted here, disabled the ship, no casualties, just a message. The Chamber's scientific delegation, a collection of researchers who rarely spoke during sessions, suddenly became very interested. That trajectory calculation would require processing power beyond any known system. One of them said. No, Solis replied, it just requires thinking differently. You all calculate probabilities, we calculate certainties. When we fire a weapon, we don't ask if it will hit, we ask when. Vale's display pinged with incoming data from the science delegation. Their analysis confirmed So's claim. The asteroid redirect wasn't luck, it wasn't even skill, it was mathematics, so elegant, so precise that it bordered on artistic. You're not a warrior species, Ambassador Thren said slowly. You're not even a technological species in the way we understand it. You're something else entirely. Vance smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We're the species that looked at the void between stars and decided to fill it with ourselves, he said. We're the species that took a mediocre planet, a mediocre sun, and mediocre biology and turned it into a civilization that just proved it could wipe out your entire military infrastructure without firing a shot. He turned to face the full chamber. The Vorak attacked us because they thought we were weak. You quarantined us because you thought we were dangerous. Both of you were right. We are dangerous, but we're not your enemy. Then what are you? Vale demanded. Vance walked toward the Threne delegation. The guards tensed. Vale forced himself to remain still. We're your neighbor, Vance said, and neighbors have rules. You don't steal from them. You don't spy on them, and you definitely don't send fleets to burn their children. He stopped directly in front of Vale. The council has a choice. Help us join the galactic community properly, share your technology, your knowledge, your culture, or step aside while we build our own community without you threats. Krello hissed. Promises. So corrected. We're not threatening you. We're offering you a chance to be part of something, but that offer expires in. She checked her wrist display. 14 standard cycles. The chamber erupted. Again, 14 cycles to decide the fate of an entire species. Impossible. Unprecedented. Insane. The 3 military will not be dictated to by the 3 military. Vance interrupted. Has already lost 3 surveillance drones to our counterintelligence systems. Drones your own commanders didn't authorize. Someone in your hierarchy is very curious about Earth. Vale's blood ran cold. The humans knew about the drones, the secret drones, the ones even his own council hadn't been told about. 14 cycles. Vance repeated. Use them wisely. He turned and walked toward the exit. So followed. Neither human looked back. The chamber sat in silence for a long moment. Then Ambassador Thren spoke. I move we grant Earth Observer status effective immediately with all associated privileges and protections. Seconded, said a voice from the back. Species no one had heard speak in decades. Vale looked at the Vorak ambassador, still trembling in the corner. What do you know that we don't? Vale asked. Vorak raised its head. They didn't come here to negotiate, it said. They came Here to warn us. The question is what? Are they warning us about? The lights flickered, the power fluctuations lasted. 3 seconds, long enough for every ambassador to notice, long enough for the security systems to cycle through diagnostic protocols, long enough for Lieutenant Soys to stop walking in. Turn around, Counselor Vale, she called. From the chamber entrance, check your military channels. Vale accessed his display. The 3 fleet network showed green across all sectors. Normal operations, standard readiness, nothing unusual. Then he looked closer. The timestamps were wrong. Every message, every report, every log entry, all of them showed transmission times that didn't match the actual rotation of the ships involved. Someone had altered the data. Your navigation systems are compromised. So said has been for 3 days. You didn't notice because we made sure everything looked normal. Ambassador Krell's feeding tentacles lashed out. Impossible. Our encryption was Vance corrected. Your encryption was based on mathematical principles we solved 200 years ago when your scientists discovered quantum uncertainty. They built walls around it. When our scientists discovered quantum uncertainty, they built doors. The scientific delegation scrambled to verify the claim. Their findings took 40 seconds, an eternity in the chambers. Current state, the human claim is accurate, the lead researcher said. Multiple fleet systems show signs of external access. The intrusions are sophisticated. We cannot determine their origin. We can, so said they originated from Earth, from a server farm powered by a single geothermal vent. Your entire military infrastructure was compromised by a facility smaller than this chamber. Vale felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of leadership helplessness. The humans hadn't just demonstrated capability. They demonstrated control, complete, absolute control over the 3 military's ability to function. Why? He asked. Why show us this? Vance walked back toward the podium. Because you need to understand something about power. You think it comes from weapons, from fleets, from technology, but that's not power, that's just force. He activated the holographic map again. This time it showed the entire galaxy, every inhabited system, every trade route, every military installation, every diplomatic outpost. Power is knowing where everything is. Power is knowing how everything connects. Power is knowing what happens when you remove one piece from the machine. The map zoomed in on a single system. Space. Ambassador threatens territory. Your species is dying, Vance said. Genetic collapse, reproduction rates falling every generation. You've been hiding it for 2 centuries, but we've known for 1. Then chromatophores went dark. How? Your medical databases, your research files, your desperate attempts to find a cure. Vance's voice softened. We're not here to exploit that weakness. We're here to tell you we can help. You're lying, Krell interrupted. Alari genetic code is beyond your ability to decode. Vance finished. We know, but it's not beyond ours. We've already mapped the mutation sequence. We've already identified the corrective vectors. We can cure your species. Ambassador Thrin, all we ask in return is a seat at this table. The chamber descended into chaos. Multiple ambassadors demanded verification. The scientific delegation worked frantically to confirm Vance's claim, then herself remained utterly still, her chromatophores cycling through colors. No one had ever seen. You would save my species, she said slowly, in exchange for diplomatic recognition. Recognition and cooperation, Vance replied. We don't want to dominate the galaxy, we want to explore it, trade with it, learn from it, but we can't do that if every species treats us like a plague to be contained. You threaten the Vork home world, Krello pointed out. We threaten their military infrastructure, their home world remains untouched. Vance's jaw tightened. There's a difference, one. We're counting on you to understand. Ambassador Krell's display pinged. He looked down, read the message, and his entire body went rigid. The hierarchs Combine has also been visited, he said quietly. Our resource processing facilities, our mining operations. Someone accessed our systems and left a file. What file? Vale demanded. Krello looked up, his feeding tentacles hung limp. A complete survey of every mineral deposit in Combine territory, including deposits we haven't discovered yet. The file's timestamp shows it was created 400 years ago. The chamber went silent. 400 years. The humans had been watching, collecting data, building a picture of galactic civilization that no species possessed. For 4 centuries they'd remained silent, waiting, preparing for this moment. You're not a newly contacted species, then whispered. You're an old civilization wearing a new face. We're both, Vance said, and we're tired of hiding. We're tired of watching species destroy themselves with war and politics and petty territorial disputes. We're tired of seeing potential wasted because no one can see past their own immediate needs. He spread his arms wide. The galaxy is dying, not quickly, not dramatically, but every cycle species fade. Civilizations collapse, knowledge is lost, and no one does anything about it because no one can agree on how to act. We cannot simply hand you power because you demand it, Vale said. We're not demanding power, we're demanding equality. Vance lowered his arms. Give us a seat, give us a voice, give us a chance to prove we're not the monsters you fear we are. And if we refuse? Vance looked at Soys, so looked at the holographic map. Then we walk away. Vance said. We seal our borders, we focus on our own development. And in 500 years, when your children face a crisis they can't solve, they'll remember this moment. They'll remember that you had a chance to bring humanity into the fold, and you chose fear instead. 500 years is nothing, Krell said. 500 years is how long it took us to go from discovering fire to reaching space. So replied, imagine what we'll do with 500 years of focused development. Imagine what will become. The chamber fell silent. 372 species, all of them calculating the same equation. What happens when humanity decides it doesn't need the galaxy anymore? What happens when the galaxy needs humanity? Veal looked at the human standing before him, small, soft, unremarkable, and terrifying. I call for a vote, he said. Observer status for Earth, all in favor. The lights flickered again. The vote tally appeared on the central hologram. 211 in favor, 136 opposed, 25 abstentions. Earth had achieved observer status, the fastest such recognition in Council history. Commander Vance didn't smile, he simply nodded once as if the outcome had never been in doubt. The Vorek will not accept this, Ambassador Krell warned. They will see it as an alliance against them. The Vorek attacked Earth without provocation, Solis replied. they don't get a vote in how we respond. The Vorak are still a council member, Vale pointed out. Their representative is present. Their voice matters. The Vorak ambassador had retreated to the shadows. At the chamber's edge, it's damaged. Appendages hung at unnatural angles. When it spoke, its voice barely registered on the translators. We withdraw from the council effective immediately. Vale's manables clicked in shock. You cannot simply, we can, we will. Vorak limped toward the exit. The humans have shown us something we refuse to see. The galaxy is changing. We cannot change with it, so we will return to our home world. We will seal our borders. And we will wait. Wait for what, then? Asked. The Vorak stopped at the doors. It turned to face the chamber one final time for the humans to decide our fate. As they already have, the doors closed. Behind it, Ambassador Krell's tentacles coiled into tight knots. What did it mean by that? So pulled up the holographic map, the markers representing Vorak military installations had all changed color from red to yellow. 3 weeks ago we sent the Vorak a proposal: surrender their offensive capabilities, demilitarize their borders, accept monitored status for 50 cycles. In exchange we would not pursue further retaliation. You gave them terms, Vale said without consulting the council. We gave them mercy, which is more than they gave our generation vessel. Vance's voice hardened. They have 14 cycles to respond. If they refuse, we will enforce the terms ourselves. You would attack a sovereign species. Based on your own judgment, we would defend ourselves against future attacks by eliminating the attacker's ability to launch them. Vance met Vale's gaze. That's not aggression, that's self-defense. The council can call it whatever makes them comfortable. Ambassador Thren's tank bubbled as she processed the implications. If you enforce these terms, you will become the dominant military power in this sector. The council cannot allow, the council cannot stop us. So interrupted. That's not arrogance, that's mathematics. Fleets are vulnerable. Your communications are compromised. Your supply lines are mapped. If we wanted to dominate the galaxy, we would have done it already. Then what do you want? Krell demanded. Vance walked to the center of the chamber. He turned slowly, making eye contact with as many ambassadors as possible. We want what every species wants: safety, security, a future for our children, but we want something else too, something most of you have forgotten. He stopped turning. We want wonder. We want to look at the stars and see possibilities instead of threats. We want to meet new species and learn new things. We want to grow to change, to become something more than we are. You're sentimental, Krell said. We're human, Vance shrugged. Sentiment is part of that, so is stubbornness, so is rage, so is love. We contain multitudes, Ambassador. That's what makes us dangerous, and that's what makes us worth knowing. The scientific delegation interrupted with an urgent transmission. Their lead researcher approached the podium trembling. We've finished analyzing the humans' asteroid trajectory calculations, she said. There's something you need to see. The holographic map shifted to show the asteroid field again, but this time it showed more than just the single redirected rock. It showed 473 asteroids, all of them positioned along Vorak supply routes, all of them with trajectory adjustments already calculated. The humans didn't just move one Asteroid, the researcher said they moved. All of them, every rock in that field is now a weapon, they just chose not to. Fire, the chamber erupted again, voices overlapped, accusations flew, threats were issued. Vance and Soli stood motionless throughout the chaos, waiting for the noise to subside. You planned this, Vale said when order was restored. Every step, every revelation, you orchestrated this entire session. We planned to survive, Vance replied. Everything else is just negotiation. The Council will not be manipulated. The Council manipulated itself. We just provided the information you needed to make informed decisions, Vance checked his wrist display. We have approximately 12 cycles remaining before the Vorak deadline. I suggest you use that time to decide how you want to proceed, and if we decide to oppose you, Vance looked at Soys, so looked at the holographic map. Then we'll have a longer conversation. Vance said one I hope we never need to have. He turned to leave, so followed. Commander Thrin called one question. Vance paused. You could have destroyed the Vorak, you could have demanded their submission, you could have used your access to our systems to us. Why didn't you? Vance was silent for a long moment. Because that's not who we are. He finally said, not yet, maybe not ever. But if you push us far enough, if you threaten our children again, if you force our hand, he looked back at the chamber, you'll find out who we become. And I promise you, you won't like it. The doors closed behind him. The council sat in silence, each ambassador calculating the same terrible equation. What happens when mercy runs out? What happens when humanity stops being kind? No one wanted to find out, but the lights flickered again, longer this time, and everyone understood the message. The humans were still watching. They always would be. 4 cycles passed before the Vorak responded. Their message arrived during a council session dedicated to Earth's observer status. Session that had accomplished nothing beyond procedural arguments. The transmission was short, 5 words. We accept your terms, Ambassador Krell's feeding tentacles went limp. They surrendered. The Vorak actually surrendered. They accepted terms, Counselor Vale corrected. There's a difference. Lights flickered. Commander Vance's face appeared on the central hologram without invitation. No, Counselor, there's not. His expression was unreadable. The Vorak just admitted that humanity is stronger than they are. That's not a surrender. That's an evolution. They're choosing survival over pride. You're satisfied. Then asked from her tank, I'm alive. My species is alive. My planet is intact. Vance's jaw tightened. Satisfaction is a luxury I can't afford. The chamber's main doors opened. A Threen military officer entered running, which Threen officers never did. He whispered something to Vale that made the counselor's mandibles lock open. A human vessel has entered Threen space. Vale announced, unauthorized, unannounced, unescorted. It's not a military vessel, Vance said. It's a diplomatic transport with a gift. The holographic map showed a small ship approaching the Threen home world. Its design was unlike anything in Council records, all curves and angles that shouldn't work together but somehow did. The ship's hull bore no markings except a single symbol, the symbol for Earth. What gift? Krell demanded. The ship's cargo bay opened. Inside, suspended in a containment field, was a Vorak weapon, one of the ones used during the attack on Earth. Still Functional, still armed, you're returning their weaponry, then asked. Confused. We're returning one weapon to demonstrate something, Vance's voice dropped. That weapon contains a targeting computer. That targeting computer contains navigation data. That navigation data contains the coordinates of every world the Vorak ever considered attacking. The chamber went silent. We've already removed the data, but we wanted you to see it to understand what the Vorak were planning. Vance paused. Earth wasn't their only target. They had plans for Threen space, for Eldari space, for the Hierarchs Combine, for every species in this chamber. You're lying, Krell said. Vorak wouldn't what attack? Their allies, their trading partners, their diplomatic neighbors. Vance's holographic image stepped closer to the camera. The Vorak didn't have allies. They had targets they hadn't gotten around to hitting yet. Earth was just the first. Ambassador Threen's chromatophores flashed a color no one recognized. Later her staff would identify it as the Ilari equivalent of weeping. We knew, she whispered. We always knew, but we looked away because looking away was easier than acting. You looked away because the Vorak were useful, Vance countered. They kept the border sectors pacified. They suppressed rebellions you didn't want to handle yourselves. You tolerated their atrocities because their atrocities benefited you. That's not, it's exactly true. Vance's voice hardened. And now you're sitting in judgment of humanity for defending itself, for daring to fight back against a monster you helped create. Ambassador Krell rose from his position. The council will not be lectured by. The council will listen. Vance interrupted. Because the council has no choice. The Vorak just surrendered to us. Their military is standing down. Their borders are opening. Their secrets are becoming ours. He leaned forward, which means we now know everything they knew about you, about your weaknesses, about your secrets, everything you thought was hidden. We have it all. The chambers. Temperature dropped. Multiple species activated defensive systems. Security personnel moved toward the exits. You're threatening us, Vale said. I'm informing you there's a difference. Vance straightened. We didn't come here to blackmail the galaxy. We came here to save it, but we can't save anyone who doesn't want to be saved. The holographic map shifted. It showed the Vorak home world, but different somehow. The colors were wrong. The orbital patterns were wrong. This is a simulation, Vance explained. Based on our projections, this is what the Vorak home world will look like in 50 cycles if they follow our terms. The image changed. The colors normalized. The orbital pattern stabilized. This is what it will look like if they don't. The image showed a dead world. Barren, lifeless, the kind of world that appears in history files as a warning to future generations. You would genocide an entire species. Veil breath, we would let them genocide themselves. There's a difference. Vance's voice carried no emotion. The Vorak have a choice. Accept our terms and survive, reject them and fade away. We're not forcing anything. We're just removing our protection. Your protection. The Vorak have enemies, lots of them. Species they attacked, worlds they burned, children they murdered. Vance's eyes went dark. Those enemies have been waiting for centuries, waiting for the Vorak to show weakness, waiting for someone to remove the shield of Vorak military power. He paused. We just removed the shield. The chamber erupted. Accusations of genocide, demands for intervention, threats of retaliation. Through it all, Vance stood motionless, waiting for the noise to subside. "You can't do this," Vale said when order returned. "The council won't allow it." The council allowed the Vorek to operate. For centuries, the council allowed them to attack Earth. The council allowed them to destroy a generation vessel full of children. Vance's voice rose. For the first time, the council allowed everything, and now the council wants to pretend it has moral authority. He laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Here's the truth, the only truth that matters. Humanity is done asking for permission. We're done waiting for approval. We're done hopping the galaxy. Will treat us fairly." He stepped closer to the camera. "We're taking our place at this table, not because you gave it to us, because we earned it with blood, with sweat, with centuries of watching and waiting and preparing. If we refuse," Krell asked, "then we'll build our own table." Vance's holographic image began to fade. "But we'll be watching. We'll always be watching. And when your children face a crisis they can't solve, when the Vorak come for you, or if something worse comes, you'll remember this moment." The image vanished. The chamber sat in darkness for 3 seconds before emergency lighting activated. Counselor Vale looked around at the assembled ambassadors, 372 species, all of them realizing the same terrible truth. Humanity wasn't asking to join the galaxy. The galaxy was about to join humanity, whether it wanted to or not. The vote took 7 cycles, not because the outcome was in doubt. It wasn't because every species needed time to process what had happened, to accept that the galaxy had changed, to mourn the death of the old order. When the final tally appeared, Earth had achieved full council membership, 293 in favor, 63 opposed, 16 abstentions. Commander Vance and Lieutenant Solis entered the chamber wearing formal diplomatic attire, no armor, no weapons, just simple clothing in Earth's colors, blue and green. "We accept," Vance said, "with gratitude and with hope." Counselor Vale stepped down from his position. Threne Dominion extends formal recognition. "We look forward to learning from humanity. The feeling is mutual," Vance replied. Ambassador Thren's tank was moved to the center of the chamber so she could address the humans directly. "You saved my species," she said. "Your medical research has already begun revering our genetic collapse. My children will, because of you. Your children will live because your species asked for help." "So corrected. We just provided the means." Ambassador Krell remained silent. His feeding tentacles hung motionless. Hierarch's equivalent of deep thought. "You've changed everything," he finally said. "The power structures, the alliances, the assumptions we've operated under for millennia. Nothing will be the same." "Nothing should stay the same," Vance replied. "Stagnation is death. Change is survival. The Vorak won't forgive this." A voice called from the back. "They'll wait. They'll rebuild. They'll come for you. Eventually, the Vorak will spend the next 50 cycles learning to live without weapons." So said, "By the time they're done, they won't remember why they wanted to fight in the first place." "You're naive. We're optimistic. There's a difference." Vance smiled, a real smile, this time without the edge that had characterized his earlier expressions. "Humanity has survived worse than the Vorak. We've survived ourselves, our own Wars, our own hatreds, our own capacity for destruction. He turned to face the full chamber. We learned eventually, not quickly, not easily, but we learned, and we're offering that lesson to the galaxy. You can keep fighting each other, keep competing, keep destroying, or you can grow up. The choice is yours. And if we choose wrong, then we'll be here watching, waiting, hopping. You choose differently next time. Vance's voice softened. That's what neighbors do. They don't give up on each other. The ceremony continued for another 3 hours. Speeches, traditions, rituals from species across the galaxy. Through it all, Vance and Sulis remained patient, respectful, present. When the final gavel fell, a symbolic gesture marking Earth's formal admission, something unexpected happened. Every ambassador in the chamber applauded, not because they were required to, not because protocol demanded it, because they wanted to, because in that moment, despite their fear, despite their suspicion, despite everything they felt, hope that the galaxy could change, hope that the cycle of violence could end, hope that humanity might actually be what it claimed to be, a neighbor, not a conqueror, not a savior, just a neighbor. After the ceremony, Vale pulled Vance aside. The question you never answered, the three said. Why didn't you destroy the Varak when you had the chance? Vance was quiet for a long moment. Because destruction is easy, he finally said. Building something new is hard, and we've spent our entire existence trying to build something new, something better, something our children would be proud of. You could have eliminated a threat forever. We could have become the threat. Vance met Vale's eyes. And that's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. The Vorak won't remember your mercy. The Vorak will remember that they're alive, that their children are alive, that their world still turns around its sun. Vance shrugged. Maybe that's enough, maybe it's not, but it's a start. He walked toward the chamber's exit, so fell in beside him. Commander, Vale called. One more question. Vance paused. The lights, the power fluctuations. You said you weren't threatening us, but you never explained what caused them. Vance looked at Soys. So looked at Vance. Natural phenomenon. Vance said, nothing to worry about. You're lying. I'm protecting you. Vance's expression was unreadable. There are things in this galaxy even we don't fully understand, things that make the Vorak look like children playing with fire. When those things wake up, and they will wake up, you'll need us. Need you for what? Vance opened the doors to remind you that the dark isn't something to fear. It's just the absence of light. And light can always be made. Again, he stepped through the doors, so followed. The chamber sat in silence for a long moment. Then Ambassador Thren spoke. I think she said slowly, we just made a deal with something we don't fully understand. We made a deal with humanity. Krell replied. That's terrifying enough. Outside the chamber, in the corridor, Commander Vance stopped walking. Lieutenant Soley stopped beside him. Do you think they believed us? She asked. They believed enough. Vance looked up at the stars visible through the station's viewing ports. That's all we need for now. The Vorak weren't the threat, Myra. They were just the warning. Vance's voice dropped. Something sent them toward Earth. Something pushed them to attack when they should have observed. Something wanted to see how we would react. So's blood ran cold. The lights, the power fluctuations, the things even our instruments couldn't explain. Vance turned away from the Stars, something is out there, something. Old, something patient, something that's been watching for much longer than we have. In the council is about to learn a hard truth. Vance began walking again. Humanity didn't join the galaxy to escape our enemies. We joined to find allies against something worse than the Vorak. Vance didn't answer. He didn't need to. In the viewing port, for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, the stars flickered and went dark. Then they came back brighter than before, waiting